Hi, some more Bluebeam tips for you. These come from an estimating and taking off perspective, but these are kind of the top 10 issues that come up during training. No particular order, but what I get asked quite often is how do I export to a spreadsheet? Fairly straightforward. You have done your takeoff, as you can see here in this window, and we want to get it into a spreadsheet. So what we essentially do is we come down here to this icon summary here. If we click on that, we get the option for CSV summary. That's the one that's going to get us to the spreadsheet. So we click that, dialog window pops up. There's various parameters that you'll where to save it, what to name it. That's for you to decide. Click OK, and you will see fairly soon that mine's popped up off screen. Now remember, this file is a CSV format, so you need to change it to Excel before you do anything else with it, otherwise it will just be gobbledygook. One thing I get asked quite regularly is why, when I export, does my data not make sense? And the primary reason for that is usually that within the markups list, just before exporting, you haven't filtered by the correct column. As you can see here, this markups list is filtered by subject because there's like a blue line under it there. And if I export that, you'll see it's all nice and neat and all grouped together with a little bit more information about how many of each type of markup there are in that particular category. So that's more or less how we want it, and that's sort of the most useful way of outputting. But sometimes people inadvertently filter by a different column. Say if I export that having filtered by measurement, it will still make sense, but let's rename that. It will still make sense, but it will be a lot harder to decipher. So just remember, before you export, make sure that you've filtered by the subject line, because the subject is in essence the tool or the markup that you've used to arrive at that measurement. Occasionally you'll find that when you open a new document to work on it, it's already got stuff populating the markups list. This is usually auto text that the architects or the engineers have left, and you'll know from experience that no matter what you do, you can't rename them, you can't delete them. They're locked into the PDF. So the way to get rid of those is to go up to the menu at the top, click on document, scroll down to flatten. These are all ticked by default, but if you want to spend some time studying them to see. But if you just flatten all the markups, leave that markup recovery unflattened ticked. I think that's probably a good idea. I've never had to use it, but click on flatten and you'll see that the drawing has now been freed up or rid of those third-party markups. Get asked this one quite frequently also, creation of tools. I find the quickest way is to just duplicate an existing tool. So something's got the properties, you want to create a very similar tool, something that's got the properties already of what you require. As an example, say we wanted to create another half B outer skin tool, but this time have it in Flemish Bond. Just go to your half B tool there, highlight it, right click on it, duplicate it, and then come over to the properties window and change the properties of the tool you've just created. Flemish Bond, you can change the colour, you know all this already anyway, and there you'll have it as your half B Flemish Bond tool there, which should, if we calibrate the drawing preset to say 1 to 50, supposing this was Flemish Bond, you'd now have your Flemish Bond tool to use, and there it appears in the markups list, and the original half B tool still useful, and that will appear as a half B tool. Just a quick one on organising your drawings. Supposing you have a group of floor plans that you want to work on, and you drag them in en masse, and we're just removing the untitled viewports. Now if you notice, although Bluebeam lists them in the right order, in the display you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4 over to the right, so they're not in order. A quick way to overcome this, you can actually grab hold of the tab and shuffle it about and reorder them yourselves manually, but quick way is to, if you're going to combine them, add the open files. Let's make that a little bit bigger so you can see it, and just adjust using the dialog window. So for instance we want to put 10 down the bottom, gone too far with that one, 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Click OK. Spits you out into a staple, and if you zoom in you will see that we're now in the right order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10. Close the other tabs, don't save because we haven't made any changes. File, save as, floors combined. Hope that helps. Just following on from that last clip, another handy navigation tip. If you, now we know we've got all these floor plans in order, we go into our thumbnails pane, we can see that the thumbnails are listed in the correct order, 1 through to 10, but they're just, we can see just the number of the drawing and not the name. Quick way to remedy that is creating page labels. So if you go up to the icon, create a page label, dialog pops up. It's given the option to select a page region, so take that option. Make sure your page range is set for all your pages. It's by default. You can do certain pages if you want. And what Bluebeam will do is, sorry, I should have clicked select. It will read each one of these title blocks on all 10 pages, and then it will give each one of these thumbnails a name as opposed to a number, which is a little bit more useful if you're flitting back and forth through the plans trying to get stuff done. I hope that helps. This is how you overcome two different scaled elevations on the same drawing. So basically come into the measurements dialog panel, scroll down to viewports. Below there you'll see add viewport. Window pops up asking you to define a region for the viewport, so grab hold of that. So these sections here are the 1 to 50. You can pre-select those, apply, add another viewport. Again, this is 1 to 50. In fact, you can actually set the custom by calibrating. And we will go 3. Apply it. And finally, the last one, again, just add those as 1 to 100. I suppose it helps if you label the viewports as well. That's your preference, but let's just say elevs. And you can see there's a distinction there. I think you can rename these. Hope that helps. Couple of pointers here to help you speed up your taking off. So we're taking off this brickwork elevation here. We're going to do the deducts. You can either use the cutout tool, which I'll show you in a second, but there's limitations to that, or you can create a dedicated deduct tool. So I've done that here. So I can just go in and use that as a deduct, bearing in mind that when I export I will physically have to do the maths. I will have to take the deducts away from the half B. But the beauty of it doing it like this is that you can speed your deducts up no end by multi-selecting each floor and just dragging and dropping by holding the shift control key, the control key, and just keep going down the whole elevation doing what you've got to do. I know that's not right at the bottom one, but it's just for demonstrations. Other approach is to use the cutout tool, and again we can only do these one at a time, but we're still quite speedy. We're using the cutout tool, we go in, we make our deduct. We know we're in deduct because the screen's turned blue. So I've made that deduct. So if I zoom in and I highlight that deduct, you can see the nodes have appeared at the edges. If I hold the control key, I can just drag that deduct down to the next similar sized opening. You can just see a faint blue line. And if you keep your finger on the control, you can do every single one of a similar size. But unfortunately you have to do one at a time, and you have to do each different one separately. So holding control, I can grab the deduct and paste it all the way down. And of course you can repeat that process with other things such as lintels. This is an example. If I can find the lintel tool. It's one of the banes of having too many tools. So again, holding shift to multi-select the markups, and then switch to control to just pop them down the whole elevation all the way down. It really does speed up your taking off if you've got suitable elevations. Hope that helps. Forming curves is one I get asked quite frequently also. There's a couple of ways to do this. The most obvious one, I'm sure you've already worked it out for yourself, is to just follow the curve on screen almost in a faceted fashion. It's fairly accurate. The closer you click, the more accurate it will be, but you'll get better with time. So supposing we wanted to just measure this pediment only, just for an example. So there I've measured my pediment. Now supposing I wanted to deduct this bullseye, use our cutout tool, and what you can do is set the corners at the midway points as such and click. If you then zoom in and you select this leg and convert to arc, and you'll see it's automatically increase the size of that cutout to match the shape of the curve. Now it won't work like that every single time, but the problem that will probably arise is if the shape's not entirely circular, it might snap the other way, but each leg of that arc will have one of these curve adjustments where you can grab hold of it, play around with it, and it will change the line of the arc. Once you get used to mucking about with it, it's quite straightforward. So that's the best way to do curves, either measuring or cutting out. Just a couple of tips to help you with your elevational taking off. On this particular one here, you can see I've got some recesses in the elevations. And the way I deal with those quickly is I will go into the ground floor plan and I'll grab that dimension for that return. Back to my elevation, superimpose a dim, and add the return, effectively drawing it in place. And it's the same on the other side, so I can just grab hold of that, holding control, paste it on the other side. And likewise here, as I'm doing this elevationally, there's obviously on this flank there's a little bit of block work behind that parapet, so if you do it sectionally you won't leave anything behind. It kind of overlaps. I hope that helps. Just another quick tip on the usage of Bluebeam, just to get the best out of it. I'm sure you're all familiar with the drawing packs that some of the nationals send out. This particular house type has got everything you need to know about this house type, including kitchen layouts, floor spaces, plank floors, details, electrical layouts, etc. Don't really need all of this information. I'm just interested in getting at the masonry on this occasion. So what you can do, I've discovered, is you can go into the document menu and you can extract pages. Dialog pops up offering you several options. Pick the custom range and just input the pages you need to extract, separated by commas. I've already gone through and selected the pages I'm going to need. Go ahead and click OK. Rename it. And you'll notice that Bluebeam's kicked me out into another stapled document. It's just got the 9 pages that are relevant to my particular takeoff on this occasion. And just another tip, if you want to call it a tip, if you're anything like me and you end up creating loads of tools on the fly, it can get a bit congested and a bit confusing, as I've said before in previous videos. What I tend to do is I tend to just make a toolbox up that is relevant to this particular housing scheme. So I'll just have all the relevant labours that I know I'm going to come across. And what you can do then is you can just go down this list in order and take off the relevant items. Hope that's helpful. Got another very quick tip for you. Thought I'd make this because I've just realised I'd made a bit of a mistake whilst taking off this rather flash house. So what I've done here is I'm actually measuring the plinth as an extra over here. So I'm doing it on plan. But what I've done is, on this particular plan, I can get to it. This section here, I've inadvertently gone straight through the door, and there's a door here. So how I would get out of that, rather than unpicking everything I've done, because it would have to go all the way back to where I started, which is over there, and I'd have to redo it. What I can do, I can go in, I can grab hold of my cursor, and I can right click and I can add a control point at the reveal. I do the same on the other side, add a control point. Now I've got my two control points. If I right click that plinth tool and I say split all, it will break all of those control points down into separate lines. And all I need to then do is select the one I want to get rid of and just click delete. And rather than undo the whole thing, it's just taken out the bit that I need. I hope that helps somebody. This is the second in a series of demonstration videos that show Bluebeam practical uses. I won't show you the whole process, just the pertinent bits, but suffice to say I'm doing a takeoff on a housing scheme. I'm going to take off this particular plot type. I won't show you the whole takeoff. I'll pause and come back to the next section shortly and then explain from there. So let's just get going with our takeoff, calibrate. And the point of this video is to just show you how speedy taking off with Bluebeam is and how speedy it is to get the output that Bluebeam produces into a spreadsheet for you to then further manipulate. So I'll come back to the takeoff, the rest of the takeoff once it's done. But here we go with taking off this house type. Here. I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Okay, so when I paused, the clock was at 11:50. It's now 11:57. So in that time, I've been able to measure up the facework, cut out the windows, measure the closers, measure the lintels, measure the sills, cavity trays, feature arches, wall plates, fire barriers at party walls, meter boxes, and it's all speedy because I've got the preset tools here, as I've explained to you before. Soldiers. Haven't actually completed this takeoff yet. I just need to grab hold of the party wall skin here. So if I just quickly do that, let's just calibrate this here. I have a tool for that ready to go. One half, and there's a spandrel in this gable, so I've only got to measure to the top of the rafter, the top floor joist rafter, down to the structural slab there. That's my party wall, and likewise I need to just take the splash girth. So if I calibrate this, and I take my perimeter girth DPC, I would measure any internal partitions at this stage here. Also, there's a small wing wall on the stairs. And there are a couple of movement joints internally on this. I'm going to mark those up as well, so they get picked up. So can't see any pad stones or wind posts. So effectively I've taken everything I need to take from this house type. So we need to get this out so we can include it in our summary pages. I'll best just check the first floor for wind posts and pad stones. Can't see any. No block work. So good to go. As you know, how to export. I think I've shown you in other videos. Sorry. File, save as, and we're saving it into the takeoffs. Save. So we export to CSV. Check the folder. Takeoffs. Select the folder, and we're only exporting the markups and totals. That's all we want. Now, off screen, this popped up. I'm sure you're familiar with the output Bluebeam give you. So we just save that. Now just know that that's a CSV file, because that's what Bluebeam exports. What we tend to do is we have a macro built that speeds up the process. If I just show you that in use, current tenders, and we are looking for our takeoff converter, latest version. So that fires up. Sorry, it's opened off screen again. Drag it over here. So enable the macro, and effectively, I can't take credit for this macro, it was a colleague of mine. Oh, enable the content, so convert. You browse to the file you want to convert, and we were in desktop. We were in that job folder, we were in the takeoffs, and we just did a Cooper type semi. We click that, and what this tool does, it basically just puts everything into a more functional build type layout for you. It collates everything, puts it all in order, adds descriptions. There's a lot more you can do with this, but just for speed, you can see that I've now got a Cooper takeoff that I can add to the others within the drawing pack. So hope that helps. And you can see basically I've just taken off that one house type in around about 15 minutes without any printing, without any spreadsheet creation. It's all done from pre-existing tools and just using a custom macro that aids the process. Hope that's helpful, and if you want to know any more, get in touch. Hi, I have a fantastic Bluebeam hack here for you. Such a time saver. It just makes your taking off that much simpler. Got a project here with quite a large floor footprint, and usually get these floor plans over several separate tiles. As you can see here, we have 3 tiles for block A, X, Y and Z that correspond to these 3 drawings. Much easier if we can get them all onto one drawing. Doesn't exist, so we're going to create our own. How we do that, come down here to look at the size of each drawing. I think that's A1, correct me if I'm wrong. So what we do is we'll look at File, New PDF, and we'll set our width at 850, and we'll set our height at 3 times that 594. So if we go 1800 millimeters, leave it a portrait as that's the orientation we want. Click OK, and we've got a new PDF. So we'll proceed to do, go into the first tile, come up to Edit, select Snapshot, or should I say Snapshot, and just copy the whole drawing. I always include the tile because it's just handy for reference. That's now taken a picture of that, in we go, and we paste it into our other drawing. Square all these up in a minute. Do the same for the other two tiles. Edit, snapshot, grab the whole thing again into our new document, paste, and finally the third one, edit, square up the center, edit, snapshot. Third one, and paste. Right, so if we zoom in tight, and I'm sure you've all done this where you've printed out the drawings and folded them and sellotaped them together and what have you. It takes a bit of fiddling around, but I can assure you it saves so much time in the long run, flitting back and forth from tile to tile. Not quite there, are we? Let's get that bang on. There we go. That's the first one. And the final one, if we line up that column there. Okay. Now we've got them all into one tile. And if we just go ahead and multi-select, right click, and I would group those. Grouping just means you're laying them all down flat into one layer, so they're all basically stuck together now. So just in case you inadvertently click, sorry, on one of the tiles by mistake when you're actually taking off, and just go ahead and calibrate and flatten. Scale and document, flatten. This just removes any other bits and pieces, and then finally file, save as, combined. Close other tabs, and there you have it, ready to be taken off. Hope that helps somebody. Just another quick useful function that I find is really helpful in Bluebeam is the ability to extract data from PDFs. This is a material schedule from a job I'm taking off currently, and I've got all the plot names and plot numbers and all the different material finishes. Some have got weatherboarding, some are all brick. So it's really handy to be able to put this into a format that's going to aid my takeoff. And what I do is basically, if I go into that file and I go into export, and I also go in then to Excel workbook, and I select entire document, give it a name, let's just call it test, save it on desktop, save. What you'll see now is Bluebeam will take that PDF and it will convert it into a spreadsheet, which has popped up off screen. Now we've got that spreadsheet and we can use it to manipulate the data within. So I just really want to know plot numbers, plot types and finishes. I can just get rid of all of this. Hide. Sorry about ways. But I've got all my plot types and what have you here, and again this is useful for just, as I'm sure you're aware, filtering. So if I want just to look at all the, say, carver types, I know which ones are all carvers and I know which ones are brick finish. They all seem to be brick finish. So if I wanted to look at, say, a chandler, I know they're all brick as well. Let's find one with a try and find one with a weatherboarding on it, just so you can see. Yeah, there we go. So some of these plots are a mixture of brick and weatherboarding, so it's just handy to be able to identify those and then compare them on the plan to narrow down all the thumbing through drawings when you're doing your takeoff. So that's one use for it. You can take that a stage further as well. Just look at this as a for instance, and again, rather than just taking whole pages, I believe in here somewhere there is a lintel schedule, which again, when we get there, this is what you get nowadays. You get the kitchen sink and all. Right, I'm sure there's a lintel schedule in here somewhere. Bear with me. There we go. No radiators. If you're a plumber, that might be useful. So what you can do here, very similar thing, is File, Export, Excel Word Book. This time just select a region of the page and you just go on to select the bit you want, which is this lintel schedule. Save it. I think it was a Cooper type, wasn't it? Save it in desktop. Again, same thing will happen, and it will pop into a spreadsheet, and you will have the lintel schedule that's it's already in the spreadsheet, and you can use it to format your own lintel schedule, and you can bring this straight into your takeoff if you want, or if you're not doing deducts, you can manipulate the dimensions in the columns to suit yourself. It's a really handy function and does save an awful lot of time. You can do it for pad stones, you can do it for steel beams, whatever is in a tabular form in PDF. You can grab it into a spreadsheet and make better use of it. I hope that's helpful. If you need any more info, get in touch. Add to that last, obviously the fact that these cells have got this text in them, you can't then use that in a multiplication formula. So you can just go through and delete all those millimeters, but there are several websites you can search that will give you certain functionality, what will strip characters out of the adjacent cells. I think I've got one here I used recently, and if I go copy and I go between the right cell, paste, you can see there that's taken out the millimeters, and it will do so on all the others also. so you can then use them in calculations. Obviously just make sure that you've appended the right amount of decimal places to the formula. But yeah, just another thing that will just save you loads and loads of time. I just thought I'd quickly show you that as well. Just a quick tip on using the overlay function that's built into Bluebeam. If you're not used it before, it's a function where you can overlay one drawing over another. And just to show you that in demonstration, I've got a basement level and a ground level drawing here. I want to lay the ground floor over the basement, just so when I'm doing my valuation I can continue on from what I'd done in the basement. So to do this, you need to go into Document, Overlay Pages, dialog box will pop up, and what it's offering you here is to pick the colour that the basement level is going to render in, and also the colour that the ground floor level is going to render in. I'm just going to quickly change that ground floor from green to blue. Okay, now just because these drawings have come from the same architect doesn't necessarily mean that they're in the same position on the A1 page. So what you need to do is align some points, otherwise this isn't going to work. So click the align points. Now it says here, choose 3 points on the document for manual alignment, and for best results choose points near the corners of the document. Also remember, and this is important, you need to choose the points in the same order on all documents. So if I show you that, now what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to grab that corner, and you can see there it's appended a little 1. I'm going to go here, I'm going to go number 2, I'm going to go opposite, and I'm going to go on that corner there and I'm going to grab it using my crosshairs, number 3. Spits me out into the next drawing. Now if you zoom in closely you can see where the points on the basement were made. So there's 1, there's 2, and there's 3. So this drawing, the way it's been laid out on the page, is not in the same spot. So the align points will get over that. So if we click point 1 and then again point 2, finally point 3, click OK. Takes a couple of minutes depending on the quality of the drawings and speed of your processor and what have you. But in a minute we should get spat out into a third drawing that's superimposed the ground floor over the basement floor, and we've got something to compare if it gets there. Here we go. Right, so if you zoom in now you can kind of see, so I can see that on the ground floor my balconies protrude. I've got these little returns, very helpful for visualizing things from floor to floor. And of course you can go ahead and mark up and do all you normally want to do with these. I hope that helps. Another navigation tip for you using some of the built-in functionality of Bluebeam This one will aid your navigation when you've got a project that's got quite a lot of sectional detail on. So let's open our drawing pack. Get them all open. File. That only works if you combine into a set. And it's important that you name that set, otherwise this won't work. So let's just call it takeoff. Close all the other tabs we don't need. Okay, now we've got the same problem we've shown you before where it's got a series of numbers, so let's remedy that and create some page labels. Let's just grab the name of the drawing there. Okay, make sure all your pages are selected in the menu. I've discovered also that if these are not in the right order when you've imported them, you can kind of shuffle them in here. So we've got lower ground floor. We want ground floor next. Then the roof, yeah. Front and left elevation. Another elevation down here somewhere. Rear and right. So we've got plans, elevations, then all the sections. We've got some external works here. We don't actually need that. Let's just get rid of that. And also that one. So now we've got a navigable set. Now if I'm taking this off, I've got all this sectional detail available to me. I'd have to keep flicking back and forth to look at that particular detail. What you can do in Bluebeam is use the batch facility to provide hyperlinks. So if we click new, we add the open files. It's combined, so it's just that particular one, so they'll all go in. And again, we need to select the region or the page label, what we're going to use to create the links. Now in this case, all these drawings are preceded by this project number, which will appear on every page. But if you look at the actual sectional detail, all we're really after is that page number 303. So if we select just the page number, click generate, it's picked up all these search terms in all the pages. You click run, and then you can see we've successfully created 54 hyperlinks. Go ahead, finish and close. Now you can set the colour of the hyperlink in the dialog as you're doing this. I've just gone for blue just so it's a little bit more obvious, but if you notice, if I want to jump to that particular 302, I click on it, it will take me to 302, which is really handy. And just remember, when you're using these navigation buttons, this particular one here will take you back to the previous view. So if I was on a plan and then I jump to this section, it takes me straight back to where I came from originally. That's a really helpful way of flitting back and forth between all the information that's available to you within a drawing set. Hope that helps somebody. Hi, another tip in the series I've been doing of late, and this one focuses on the search function that's built into Bluebeam, and I just wanted to demonstrate the two different types of searches you can do. So if I combine these two drawings, these are engineers' drawings, and I'm sure you've seen these before. They're quite fiddly, or can be quite fiddly, with a lot of detail, and when you're looking for things like pad stones and wind posts, it can be quite tricky, quite easy to miss stuff. Let's combine these two and get searching. Close other tabs. Right. So let me demonstrate the visual search first. So come over to the search box by clicking, it's accessed via this search icon. It'll be on one of your toolbars somewhere. There are two types of search. There's text and then there's visual. We'll show you the visual one first. So highlight that, and what we're going to do, we're going to look for a couple of wind posts that are, I know, are on this drawing. Get the rectangle, zoom in, draw a little box around the wind post icon that's been drawn in CAD. Click on search. Down here you can see Bluebeam searching all the open documents, and it's found 3 wind posts. So with the results, if you select them all, the various things you can do with the output. This second option, the check options, if you pick the drop down from that, you can highlight the checked ones, go into your drawing, 1, 2, I think the third one's down here. Makes it easier to locate them. Again, go into the check options and you can apply a count to the checked items. And if you've already got that tool created in your toolbox, just browse to it and you'll see that it'll add it to the markups list for you. You can see it's also found all the wind posts on page 2 as well, and if you had the page column turned on, page label, it would probably tell you what page that was on in this markups list as well. So that's the visual search. Let's just get rid of that, clear them, and go back to the text search. So there's quite a lot of pad stones on this job, so let's search for this particular pad stone here, pad stone 3. Go in, PS3, search. Again, it's located 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in that dialog list. So if we highlight them all and highlight the checked, there's a little thing you need to be careful of using a text search. If you notice where I've applied the highlight, it's also picked up the PS3 that's actually in the schedule, so you're getting one too many in your printout, in your list out here. So just be mindful that you're getting the correct count. So if we go into the other page, look at all the highlighted ones, just count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's picked up the legend on that one there, so there's, looks like there's only actually 6 of those pad stones at PS3. There aren't any on here. So what I would do to overcome that, make sure I'm accurate, again I would apply a count, and we've got pad stone here. Let's put it into my markups list. So if I go into that item, that entry that's been made in the markups list, and I click split all, I can then individually go in and get rid of the ones that I don't want. and my count should then be correct. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and again you can merge the counts back to the 6. So hopefully that gives you a few pointers on the search function. Hope that helps. Just another quick tip on the usage of Bluebeam Review. Oftentimes we need to dive into the help pages, and what I've personally found frustrating until I worked out how to overcome the problem was the navigation of these pages, because you'd go into help, you'd search help, and you'd go into a particular section, and you'd get various instructions on following a procedure and what have you, but getting back to where you previously came from, there's no obvious way to do it, but it's quite simple. You right click and you get given a backwards forwards refresh bar. I hope that helps somebody. Just wanted to touch on the spaces feature that's built into Bluebeam. Spaces are designed to separate areas out within drawings, so you can isolate and group items together of a similar ilk. An example of that is recently tendered and secured a project for a customer, and the contractor, their preferred method of payment is to pro forma, split everything down in advance and give you a pro forma invoice, and you just book in the areas as percentage complete. So what I've done in this instance is internally I've set up spaces for each floor, and I've set up zones, and then what I've done is all the internal walls, I've basically marked them up, and any markup you make within a zone stays within that zone, and it is allocated to that zone. So as an example of that, so we're on the ground floor here, I've got a space called Zone 1 that I've created in the Spaces tab, and all these polylines are basically my internal partitions. And you can see from the markups list that all these polylines and the quantity of them is allocated to Zone 1. So what that then allows me to do is export this at the end, and I will have a record of what the total girth of the internal partitions are in Zone 1 on the ground floor. So then comparing that to my overall takeoff, I then do a percentage complete comparison, and then just proceed to split the lift money out that way. So there's one for every floor. Excuse me. First floor's got 3 zones. Second floor 3 zones, and I can quite easily work out the amounts of that particular type of work in that particular area to then put a value to it based on my previous takeoff. And it not only works on plan, elevationally works as well. As you can see here, I know what the value of my external envelope is, so all I've basically done here again is using spaces is create an overall of the elevation that I've measured. That gives me an idea of what the percentage of the elevation in this drawing is as a percentage of the overall, and then I proceed to break it down into floors, and further to that, once I'm in my spreadsheet, I go on to break it down into lifts, 50, 60, 50%, 60%, whatever you want to, however you want to split it. Excuse me. The thing with spaces as well is you've got to be mindful of it needs a bit of planning, because they can't be overlapped, but they can be nested. That means that you can have a space within a space, but you can't overlap them. If you look at the Bluebeam University, there's some really good in-depth tutorials on using spaces, but it's just a very handy, quick way of splitting a job down prior to valuation for pro formas, and you also get a handy legend that you can send over to the other surveyor to have a legend as to what goes where. And I'll just show you the output of the spreadsheet that I produced based on the back of this. So effectively you can see from the elevations, what I've done here is I've got I know what my overall quantity for the whole project is. So elevation A, I can then derive that that's 9% of the overall project, and each one of those lifts in turn is a percentage of that 9%, and we then attribute a value to it, and then we split it into however many lifts we actually want to. And likewise with the on plan splits, again I've worked out the percentage of those internal partitions based on a per zone basis, and then compared that to the overall that I know from my original takeoff, and you get a value in a lift split accordingly. I will do a very in-depth tutorial on spaces at some stage, but this is just a quick intro to show you how useful they can be. Hope that helps somebody. Just carrying on with these tips, just a short introduction to layers. As you know, all markups created on the markups list are in the form of layers, and if you find yourself getting very crowded on the workspace or lots of different takeoffs, you can actually create layers and turn them on and off. So I'll just quickly demonstrate, and supposing we just wanted to hide a particular takeoff to make other things clearer, what you can do, you can go in, you can grab hold of a particular item. Let's go for this 2 skins of block work I've measured here. Highlight the whole lot, right click, go down to layer, scroll across to create new layer, give the layer a name. I always think it's a good idea to give the layer the same name as the subject or the markup tool, whatever you want to call it. So proceed to name that. Come over to your markups list where you manage your columns, go into the columns menu, go down to layer. Now if you could see in the layers column, there's a small icon that is the layer we've just created, and if we browse back to the drawing we were actually on, you can see in that column there's a sort of little eye icon. If you just go ahead and click that, it turns it off. You notice that the corresponding 2 skins markup on the workspace has actually disappeared. So that's a solution if you get very busy, very crowded workspace. I hope that helps somebody. Another convenient feature in Bluebeam is the ability to add your own legends to marked up drawings. Comes in very handy when you're sending something to somebody else and you need them to make sense of it. Quite simple, really. Once you've completed your markup, you've got all your markups in your markups list. If you go into the area that has the items in it that you want to include in the legend, which is basically the whole screen here, is just pick a cursor, just select everything on the screen so it's all highlighted, zoom in a bit closer, right click everything and go down to legend and scroll across and click create new legend. Now bear in mind, when you click on this, what it will do, it will append that legend to your cursor for you to drag and drop into some white space somewhere. So if you find you're not able to paste the legend, it's because you've clicked before you've had a chance to paste it into the drawing. There it is, it's self-explanatory, and of course, as you can with everything in Bluebeam, it's highly customizable. You can pick all the columns you want to show by editing the properties. You can change the background color. You can change the size of the icons. You can do one legend on one page and have it pull it in from all the other pages by using the source drop down choice. It's entirely up to you, but just a word of advice, just plan your colors in advance so that they're easy to pick out, and obviously also display well in the actual legend, because you'll get the symbol pasted in there as well. Hopefully that helps somebody. One of the more powerful features in Bluebeam is the ability to create custom columns. And there's a variety of reasons why you'd want to do this. As an example, I use custom columns in my profile because I've tailored my profile to just utilize the built-in measurement column that ships with Bluebeam. So that will hold the markup data for an area, a count, a volume, a line, whatever. It's just a measurement of whatever you've measured. Just to demonstrate that, if I quickly show you the main profile that comes with Bluebeam, or one of them, if it just switches over, you can see here there's all these different columns. They all do different things, they all interact in different ways when you input different things. So it's a lot of data to export, when really I only need to manipulate that measurement column, which is why I use the profile that I do. So in order to achieve that, I need to have the measurement column, as I say, is built in. I need to provide a column that I can use as an extender. So in this case, it's a timesing column, and I need to produce the extension or the product of that. And both of these times and extension columns are custom columns that I've created, and effectively what they do is whatever's in times is whatever's in the measurement and gives me a product or an extension. Fairly basic, fairly straightforward, very, very QS like, and that's the way I've intended it to be. I mean, you can put a minus figure in this times column if you choose to work that way. So how do we create these? Basically, we go into markups list menu on the left here. We go into columns, and we go right down the bottom to manage columns, and dialog pops up, and we get our option to create custom columns in this tab here. And you can see in the default pane, you've got all the built-in columns there. So to create a custom column, select that tab, and because I've already added these and created them, I won't do that again. I'll just show you how they're done. So you would not typically click add. I'm just going to go for modify. So the times, I basically tell it what I want the column to be called. I tell it the type of column it is, and there's various things in there. Can be a tick mark. Choice is really powerful, but that's the subject of an advanced lesson. Dates, formulas allow you to create formulas as you would in a spreadsheet. Number just holds a number, and text holds a text. They're fairly obvious. So if we just leave that as number, because all I want it to do is hold a number, and I just give it a default of 1, so that later on when I'm in the spreadsheet I haven't got to go through and fill out loads of ones. It's just a default because it's one measurement of something every time. In contrast to that, the extension column, again you would click add and you would create it. Let's just go through the process. So I tell it it's an extension column, I tell it it's a formula column, and what I basically do is I type the expression in this expression box. So what you do is you just start typing, and it will give you the variables, which are all the other columns that exist. So I want times, and as you would in a spreadsheet, just you can start typing the column you want it to times by, which is in this case measurement. So my extension column comprises of the result of times in the times column by the measurement column. The format and all that are all fairly obvious, so click OK. And whenever you're finished doing anything like this, always save to profile, always. Otherwise it will just not exist when you go back to try and use it. So essentially, if I times that by 3, you'll see the extension column changes accordingly. I hope that's helpful, but as I say, it's a very, very powerful feature, and you can use pre-custom columns to create some very, very powerful outputs for your spreadsheets. I really do hope that helps. Got another tip to help speed up your Bluebeam taking off, just by employing a bit of clever cutting and pasting. In this example, we've got a block of flats. It's about 8 stories, and a lot of the floors are identical. So rather than repeat the takeoff on every floor, I can cut and paste. So this is the ground floor. But I do know are slightly different to the corresponding subsequent floors. So if we go to the first floor, you can see here I've taken off quite a few labours, and I'll demonstrate that by creating a legend. So if I highlight everything, right click, create a legend, you'll see what I've got here is various labours. There's quite a few labours here, quite a bit of information. And as I say, if I had to do this on every floor, it's quite laborious. So I've got some internal block work. I've got some internal block work against concrete. Some 140 block work. I've got some internal face work on the stair cores and the corresponding deducts. I've measured the external special DPC corners as well as the internal DPC specials. Some brickwork columns around the perimeter, the actual girth of the slab edge perimeter, and the positions of all the cavity barriers. Whilst that legend's on, I can actually turn a different column on, and you'll see that all these labours are now allocated to that first floor label, as they were in the label column originally, because I used the label column, as I said, for my annotations. And now that's all sorted, Grab hold of everything again, highlight it, right click to copy it all. Now before you go ahead to paste onto other drawings, ensure they're all pre-calibrated, because if you try to paste into an uncalibrated drawing, it will ask you to calibrate and you'll have to go through a few tricky steps and you might have to repeat yourself. So move on to the second floor, right click, click paste once. What you've copied will paste onto the page, and before you click any more, just as your opportunity to go in and grab hold of all the highlighted items, they're all multi-highlighted, pop them into the position where they're supposed to be. Still don't click, because you need to go over to the properties dialog panel and change the annotation to second, and again do the same on the third floor, paste, leave it all highlighted, maneuver it into position, change the label, third, and you can see for the markups list that I've now got all those labours that were originally on the first floor cut and pasted and annotated to first, second and third floor. And just to prove that, if we go to the second floor, highlight everything again, right click, legend, sorry it didn't take that time, clicked too quickly. If I add the label, you can see separated it out into the second floor. So as I said, all those labours are allocated across the floors, and you can just go on to manipulate the data as you would. I really hope that helps speed up your taking off. Another convenient feature built into Bluebeam is to be found in the Preferences dialog panel. If you go into Review, go into Preferences, go into Interface, go into the Markups list, and the first one in the menu there, Zoom Fit Markups when selected. I've got mine checked. What that allows me to do is, when I'm going through and I'm checking my markups to make sure I've annotated everything correctly, I've come across this radius measurement, which could mean anything. I should have renamed it at the time, but I sloppily didn't. So if I click on that, what Bluebeam will do, it will automatically take me straight to that markup without having to go through the whole drawing trying to find it, and allows me to rename it on the spot, which is quite a handy feature. If you notice, it will take us directly to any of these markups directly. So, you know, if you're checking through and you've forgotten to extend, put a height in, rename it properly, that's a very quick and convenient way to locate items within the markups list on the drawing so they correspond. Hope that helps. Another convenience function built into Bluebeam is the ability to manage your autocomplete lists. Going through checking my takeoff and my markups here, I've noticed I've made a right hash of the spelling of this particular entry. I'm going to go and correct it. If I leave that P there, you'll see that Bluebeam offers me a list of autocomplete options. That's what I actually wanted, was that entry there. But what happens is with Bluebeam, everything you ever type into any field or form gets recorded and appended to that list. And you can access that list by going up to Review, Preferences. In the General section, across on the right is Spelling. and next to the enable autocomplete function is a manage button. Click that. Dialog pops up giving you the option to manage your autocomplete lists, and there's several categories in there. There's author, email, label, search, remembers all your search terms, subject, which is where we basically those are our tool descriptions, and you can add, omit, and mess about with these, and you can also pre-populate them so that you've got stuff conveniently available to pick from when you're annotating. It's quite handy. But if we go into subjects, just one thing I wanted to point out, it's quite sensitive, and if you get the scenario where you've actually created a tool, as I've done here, at some point in the past I've typed this description into a tool. I've just been on the fly, rushing, doing something. I've then done it again, and at some stage later, somewhere else in the document, I've done it again, but this time I've not included a space between the 100mm laid flat in both entries. So the upshot of what I'm saying is that they are two completely different descriptions, and Bluebeam will do that. It will differentiate between uppercase, any spaces, any slight misspelling, anything that makes it different, and it will kick those out into separate subjects and separate categories within the markup. So you might think you've labelled everything correctly in one section, and then you'll find it appears in a separate section. It's quite easy to just highlight everything and convert it, but it will kick you out into a separate markup, as I say, and give you more work to do when you're trying to tidy up your work inside the spreadsheet. That last point I made, if I grab the length tool and I'm measuring a internal wall supposedly, give it a preset. So I've got hold of that tool. I'm going to rename it 215. I'll do the same again further down the line somewhere else in another document. Incidentally, if you're pulling out a line, if you hold the shift key, it will give you a straight line in. It'll keep it straight for you. So again, I'll go in and I want to change that to even though I'm intending that they're both the same tool, Bluebeam's categorised them into separate subjects purely and simply because of the gap in that misspelling. So just be aware of that if you're relying on that autocomplete list when you're doing your taking off. Again, I hope that helps. Got another tip on spaces I thought might be useful to share. I've only just realised myself I was able to do this. Doing a takeoff for a long-term client, he tends to specialise in these big flash mansion types, and contractors asked him for several options. So at the moment it's been taken off as stretcher bond to the external leaf, but the client wants an option for Flemish bond to the front elevation only, and then another one for the whole thing to be in Flemish bond. So to achieve that, I've created a space called front elevation, as you can see, and I've applied it to the front elevation. I've enabled the space column from the markups list columns option. I've just ticked space, so space will appear. There it is, and it gives me a space column in my markups list. So everything that's on that front elevation, that's now had the designation of front elevation applied to the space. As you can see, there's various markups that have now got the designation of a front elevation only on them. So that's very handy, because what I can now do is go into summary, the export summary, CSV summary. I can go in, change the name of the file to Flemish, go into the filter option, and I can then pick from this filter and sort menu the relevant and pertinent items that I need to export that would need enhancing to Flemish bonds. So I can turn off everything and just pick the relevant ones, as I say, and which will be this one, and there's a curved bay at the front here. So I've selected those. I've then got the option of going into selected everything from the space drop down option, and all I want to export is the front elevation ones. So if I click on OK, I now get an export that gives me the items from the front elevation that need to be enhanced from stretcher to Flemish. I hope that helps somebody. Got another quick tip here, might find useful. This arose from a recent training session where I teaching a client, and by virtue of that I'd installed my profile into his Bluebeam installation. His existing installation had an existing profile that had some very useful tool sets that he wanted to transfer into the new profile I'd set up for him. So the solution I've come up with is this. This is the profile I installed for him. So what I came up with was, if we go up to review, we go into profiles, and we go into the profile that contains the tool set that you want to import into your newer profile. Go to tool chest, select the drop down, go down to manage tool sets, highlight the tool set that you require to transfer from profile to profile, click on modify, check the show in all profiles option, and just click OK. Just click OK to come out of that. Now return to the profile that you want to import the tool set into, and it's appeared in this profile now because I've got it selected as display in all profiles. And if you want to switch it off when you're not using it, you can go into the drop down, select it, untick it, or go into manage tool sets, whatever. But I hope that is useful. I was asked recently to demonstrate how I would create a tool and use it for, say, measuring internal skirtings. So I thought I'd record it, and it might be useful to others as well. So essentially I've got a drawing here that I have flattened and I've calibrated and I've checked. I've created an internal skirtings tool by using the perimeter tool and changing the settings. So we go ahead and measure. if I do bedroom 1, and on this occasion I'm going to go straight through all the openings. And as you can see in my markups list, I've got internal skirtings times 1 as per that girth line I've just created in bedroom 1. And you can use your label to annotate which rooms they're in and what have you. So to handle the deducts, there's a couple of ways you can do this. And you can either carry on using the same tool and in the timesing column you can change that to a -1, and what that will do, it will reduce the running total for you. Same here. And you can see that total has reduced. Now if I wanted to group all those together, and annotate those as bedroom 1, so I know what I've got in all of those, and when I export I'll be able to see clearly what the deducts are and what the adds are. Visually that can be a bit confusing if you've got a lot of lines on the screen. Alternately, what you can do is just create a dedicated deduct tool with the same name, which I've done here. So basically all I did was duplicate the skirtings tool and just altered the properties of it. Gave it a contrast so it's easier to view on the screen. Change the style, and if you're using my profile and my custom columns, if you come to the custom box and you type in -1 and set as default, you can then do the deducts in a similar way. But on this occasion, the deducts will be in their own separate subject. So you would have to take the 1.78 away from the 14.86. So when you export, you'll have the deducts separate from the actual measure. Of course, the obvious is as well, just don't include the doors in the first place. And obviously as you're going around the perimeter, make sure those external openings are not doors. So bedroom 2. So I hope that's helpful.